Okay. So, this is not, I was explaining to Deputy Stulkin, this is not like our typical internal affairs investigation because, as you probably guessed, we're getting sued.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And that ultimately he's going first because we've determined that he's less culpable than Lieutenant Walker. So that's why we're taking his statement first, and then we will follow up with Lieutenant Walker, and then we'll make sure that you get Lieutenant Walker's statement and all of that. Okay? So, Deputy Stulkin, where do you want...
I'm fine standing right
here. You can't just stand the whole time. Can we just... Let me hear. Lean into that and have a little seat on that. He doesn't actually fit in the chair because of all of this.
Yeah.
So, Deputy Stulkin was not able to view the Dropbox information, but I went over it with him here. So as we get this, this is I think my first Zoom internal affairs interview. So just, you're gonna have to bear with me on that. Okay. So we'll start this, Mr. Hellman, you're good? Okay. My name is Inspector Michelle Maxwell of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Today's date is Wednesday, July the 20th. The time is 11:10 a.m. I am here with, can you state your name for the record, sir?
Donald Stulkin.
Deputy Donald Stulkin. And we have joining us via the Zoom platform. Could you state your name, sir?
Staff Attorney Mike Hellman from the South Florida Police Benevolence Association.
Okay. Oh, we're good just on? Okay. Trying to minimize our interruptions here. Okay. And we are here on Internal Affairs number 2022-017. Let me get to my... regarding allegations that... Deputy Stulkin was involved in essentially what the complainant, Mr. Adam Robinson, is alleging was a wrongful arrest or an illegal arrest. Before we get started, I'm going to go over Deputy Stulkin's, what we call your administrative proceeding rights. Mr. Hellman, this is Deputy Stulkin's very first internal affairs investigation, so I'll take a little bit more time with them here, okay? You are, Deputy Stulkin, advised of the following. Any admission of misconduct made in the course of this administrative interview may be used as the basis for charges seeking your removal, discharge, or suspension. Any admission made by you during the course of this administrative interview could never be used against you in a subsequent criminal proceeding. That is your Garrity right, okay? But Garrity does not provide protection from perjury. You have the right to a representative of your choosing. We have Mr. Hellman here, okay? Mm-hmm. Including legal counsel, to be present with you and advise you for this administrative interview, and you will be afforded the opportunity to reasonably consult with him or her in private. When we do these over the Zoom platform, the recorder has to stay running, but I leave the room, I'll go to the back of the area, and you could talk to Mr. Hellman over Zoom, either over the Zoom platform, or if you want to step out and call him, and you step out and have a separate conversation with him. I just need to let you know, this recorder stays running, and the Zoom platform stays running.
Okay.
So I can't turn it off. So you can always step outside and say, like, hey, do you mind if I talk to Mr. Hellman? And Mr. Hellman, the same thing, if you need to speak with him, I guess wave or something, and we'll stop and, okay? Okay. You have the right to be given reasonable time to obtain counsel of your own choosing, and you have an obligation to truthfully answer the questions that are put to you today. You are now being ordered to answer my questions. A refusal to answer my questions will constitute a violation of the Operations Manual of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and may serve as a basis for disciplinary action that could result in your termination if you don't answer my questions. So you're going to sign there. I'm going to grab a water because My throat's been really itchy and I have bad sinuses, so hold on. Mr. Stulkin, can I get you water?
No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. If you change your mind, let me know because the air in here is really dry. Okay. Could you please, for me, raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you out?
I do.
Okay. So, Mr. Hellman, I know that there were some issues getting Deputy Stulkin the information that he needed to review before giving his statement. So, I keep putting my face right there in the camera. I wanted you to know that he was able to review the following, okay? His report that he authored on 2/26/2021. He watched his body-worn camera video. He listened to the Captain Thompson's statement. He was provided with Brenda Weingarten's 2 statements, the statement of Linda Mixon, the statement of Wendy Negrone, and the statement of Adam Robinson, but he chose not to listen to those because he did not feel like they were pertinent. He understands that Lieutenant Walker will be interviewed after he's interviewed, and then he'll come, you can make any follow-up statement or anything like that he wants to after that interview. And I think that was everything we reviewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anybody that you would like me to interview before you give your statement that you think would help with discovering what went down with this, besides Lieutenant Walker, obviously?
Yeah, I can't think of anybody else that was either there or within earshot of.
Okay. There was one gentleman in the parking lot that you saw that I guess was also there to.
I don't know what he was doing.
And I tried to determine who he was, and I couldn't determine who he was. So, yeah, okay. So, with no other, I'm just trying to get my disaster. Without any other witnesses that you would like me to discuss or interview for you, I guess we're going to go ahead and start with, I'd like to ask you some big picture questions, right?
Okay.
Just about sort of your understanding of trespass and the law of trespass and how those things should be handled, right?
Okay.
So, can you tell me in general, are you familiar with the Florida statute on trespass?
Yes.
Okay. Explain to me, if you could, what is your understanding of the legal requirements as far as just issuing your basic trespass to somebody?
Okay, so the person has to be told to leave or be issued a trespass warning telling them to leave the property. When they fail to do so, then after being properly warned, then they're subject to arrest. They could be subject to arrest. Here in Monroe County with our public property, we have a specific form that if you're being trespassed from public property, I would fill this form out, provide it to them, and then it offers them the date and it offers them the availability to attest why they should not be trespass warned from county property.
So let me stop you right there, Deputy Stulkin. So there's a difference between the process that you go through from trespassing somebody from private property versus trespassing somebody from county property. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay. And when you are trespassing from somebody from county property, could you just tell me, you said that there was a form.
Yes.
Okay, can you describe to me, because I've never seen the form before.
Okay.
I will get a copy of the form to supplement the file. Could you tell me what are the requirements that you need to fill out on that form in order to issue that very specific trespass from county property?
So on the form, so the form itself isn't filled out by me. It's provided to the trespasser to argue or be able to have a means of explaining why they shouldn't be trespassed, but for them to be able to receive that form. For me, my understanding of the procedure of that form is that I have to have issued them a trespass warning, and I would need that person's information to complete the trespass warning form. I would provide them with a copy of that trespass warning letter and the form that gives all of them the information as to, I believe it's a court date is
Right.
what they're, and they go before a judge or the clerk and attest to why they should not be trespass warned from said county property.
Okay, so as part of the information that you're asking for to fill the form out is their name.
Name, date of birth, driver's license number, address. What else? There's something else in there.
And
Our
something
form
else.
goes through, basically with a driver's license or an ID card, I'd be able to glean all the applicable information that I would need to complete that form to be able to properly issue a trespass warning for that person on county property.
Okay, so that's super helpful to me because I just needed some sort of background information on how we handle trespasses here, right? Okay. So with that said, I want to take you back. I believe it was February the 26th. Just make sure I'm getting that right. 2021. Okay. I know that's kind of a stretch back for you to go there, but do you recall being called to this Cudjoe substation, I believe, by one of your commanding officers, whether it was Captain Thompson or Lieutenant Walker, to deal with a trespass issue?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Could you tell me, what do you remember happening that day?
I remember I got the phone call asking me to come to the station because there was a guy trespassing there and acting irate.
And who was that phone call from?
I don't remember if it was from Patty or Tom. Lieutenant Walker or Captain
Thompson. Okay. So you just remember getting the call?
Yes.
Okay. And so they informed you that there was somebody there and they were acting irate.
Yep,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Okay, go.
Okay.
Pick it up from there. Let's see.
That they were acting irate and trespassing. So I said, okay, I'm on my way. I drove to the station. When I pulled into the station, there was a guy standing at the front doors to the station with his face up against the window. And when I got out of the car and started talking to him, he immediately walks forward to me, phone in the face, and starts arguing with me about the laws of trespassing.
So when you approached and you pulled up to the station, was he just standing there or was he doing something? Was he...
It was like he was knocking on the windows to the station when I pulled up. So
Okay.
like we have the front doors to the station, and then on the side there's like a plate glass window, like to trim the doors. If that makes sense.
Right. Like
So- Like a vanity window.
right, like on the sides. Okay. And he was knocking on those windows.
Yeah.
I mean, let me ask you: was he knocking hard? Was he just knocking casually? Like, what was your level of concern when you approached Mr. Robinson?
He was pounding on the window, and it's not. I mean, at the time, our station, I can't remember when it was built, but it hasn't been rebuilt. It's probably the same set of old doors, or how our station, Cudjoe is like a long lost, forgotten station.
Well,
And
that's true.
it was set for rehab. At the construction hadn't started yet, but I would only assume that maybe 16th inch plate glass windows in a wood frame. It's not going to take a lot to beat that out.
And would you describe him as aggressively knocking, or
Yeah, he wasn't, it was not a polite,
like?
there was no polite interaction from him. It was immediate confrontation, immediate, I was immediately on defense for de-escalation
Okay.
the second I started to engage him.
Okay. And so you approached him, and tell me about how that went.
So I approached him. I asked him to identify himself. He refused to. I want to say that he asked me why, or that he didn't have to. I tried to tell him that I was investigating a trespass, that I was conducting an active investigation for trespassing, and he wouldn't even let me talk. I couldn't get a word in edgewise I couldn't even answer his own question.
Because he was talking.
Yeah, because he kept talking over me.
Okay.
Or he would cut me off, and trying to de-escalate the situation, I'm trying to listen and I'm not trying to get the guy any more mad. If anything, I want to bring him down so that, I can glean as much information as I can from him without having, I would have loved to been able to get the information that I need, issue him the trespass warning, and he can go do whatever it is that he had planned to do the rest of the day and live his happy life. But
Okay, so let me ask you this question. You mentioned that you arrived on scene and you immediately asked for his identification.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me ask you, in your training and experience here at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, what are the requirements, or what allows you, or what needs to be present for you to start asking citizens to identify themselves to you?
Oh, well, I have to have reasonable or articulable suspicion the crime has committed, is going to be committed, or was already committed.
Okay.
Under Florida State Statute, I believe it's 901-151.
Okay. I can't really attest to that, but I will take your word for it, sir. So, you're saying that, and so with that in mind, did you ever explain that to Mr. Robinson, that you had, explain to me what your reasonable suspicion was and what you believe justified to you your ability to demand he identify himself?
Okay.
Would you say it's fair, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but would you say it's fair that's where things maybe between you and Mr. Robinson started to deteriorate at that point?
Yeah.
When you were asking him to identify himself, and he did not believe that you had the legal authority to ask him to identify himself.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. So could you explain maybe what your reasoning was behind those demands?
Behind my demands?
Yeah, for him to identify himself.
Well, I was under the impression that he had already been trespass warned from the station. And from what I saw when I arrived, he was causing a disturbance at the station. He caused us to lock the station. That we don't lock those doors unless there's nobody in the station. There's no, it's open to public access during the hours of 8 to 5. And that's not a normal course of business for Miss Brenda to lock those doors, and then also not be in the front office either.
Right. So when you said that you were under the impression that he had been trespassed from the station, is that something that you, during the course of this investigation, requested information from your your superior officer, whether it was Lieutenant Thompson or Lieutenant Walker or Captain Thompson? Is that a question that you had asked them during your previous interaction with them? Had this gentleman been asked to leave, or had he already been warned before you arrived on scene?
From what I remember from the phone call, I was told that he had been trespassed, or that he was trespassing, and to come to the station, because now he's also causing a disturbance.
Right. So that he had been asked to leave.
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember, or do you recall during your interaction before taking Mr. Robinson into custody, do you remember specifically asking Lieutenant Walker if he had already been warned?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that I had.
Okay. So after you took Mr. Robinson into custody and you transported him to the jail, do you recall anything significant happening at that time?
No. Not from once he was put. I handcuffed him, walked him over to my car, standard search incident to arrest, placed him in the back of my car, and then I talked to Lieutenant Walker briefly, and then off to the jail I went.
Is it fair to say that your entire interaction with Mr. Robinson, from when you arrived on scene to the time that you transported him to the Monroe County Detention Center, was caught on your body-worn camera?
Yes.
So
I activated my camera before I pulled in the parking lot, and I also activated my in-car camera as well.
So your entire interaction, there was no conversations that you had off camera or anything like that with Mr. Robinson that we don't see, or
No.
anything like that? Okay. I'm going to see. Okay. As part of your report, and I just wanted you to take a look at this, you see that you write the statement, Adam asked why I needed his identification. I informed him in the state of Florida he needed to identify himself to law enforcement. He refused to provide you with his identification, asking why you needed it, and you told him you were investigating a trespassing from the information provided to you by Lieutenant Walker. Okay?
Okay.
So let me ask you, do you believe that when I informed him in the state of Florida he needed to identify himself to law enforcement, and you have a comma there. So let me ask you, does every citizen in Florida need to identify themselves to the police just if you ask for their identification?
Absolutely not. That would be considered a consensual encounter.
Okay.
And in a consensual encounter, unless I have reasonable and articulable suspicion to justify that a crime has been committed, is being committed, or is going to be committed, you can tell me no and walk away, or no, I don't want to talk to you today. And, okay, have a good day.
Okay.
And it's happened before.
Right, it happens.
In the course of my law enforcement duties, it's happened before. I want to talk to somebody, and no, I don't want to. Okay, have a good day.
Okay. What made this interaction with Mr. Robinson different than a consensual encounter?
What made it different is I was actively investigating a report of trespassing by Lieutenant Walker, and also possible disorderly conduct at the station as well.
Okay. So you were, I guess, to bring it, you were saying that you arrived there with a heightened degree of suspicion based on what you had been told by...
Reliable information given to me by another active duty law enforcement member.
Okay. So were you, during the course of your interaction, after reviewing your body-worn camera and associated, reports, at any time did you use profanity, or were you rude to Mr. Robinson?
I don't believe so. I don't remember cursing at him. I thought that I was being polite and professional. I was in de-escalation mode, trying to de-escalate him, de-escalate the situation, because the last thing I wanted to do was use force.
Okay.
use force or improperly arrest somebody if I don't need to. I simply wanted to issue him the trespass warning and let him go. He's the one that pushed the scenario.
Let me ask you, was there any, and I'm going to be just very frank with you, was there any feelings of retaliation or getting back at Mr. Robinson because he was there to file a complaint against some of your fellow deputies?
Absolutely not. I'm also an A/ for our shift, which is the acting supervisor, and that I would have gladly given him any of that information. I carry the pamphlets, the internal affairs pamphlets, in my driver door pocket, that if anybody, it's in policy, if anybody requests the information to make an internal affairs complaint, that we readily provide it to them. So,
Okay.
absolutely. If that's, I mean, I would have given him that information freely and willingly.
So, okay, I'm just trying to make sure I've covered all bases here. Did you have the opportunity to review the, and don't quote me on this, I want to say it's lackluster or some kind of video that was posted online by an organization that Mr. Robinson either sold or shared his story with the internet? Did you have the opportunity to look at that video?
I was made aware of it. I watched about 30 seconds of it, and it made me so mad because it was such a grossly inaccurate depiction of what had occurred that day that I couldn't stand watching it. I turned it off, and I quite frankly refused to watch a lie.
So let me ask you, up to today, when you walked into this office, what was your understanding as to what the legal conclusion of Mr. Robinson's case was? What did you have a discussion with the state attorney, or were you led to believe his case was resolved in some manner?
I was led to believe that the case that he had pled after we were set to go to trial, and then I was released from the trial subpoena. And I was led to believe that he had pled out on a plea bargain.
So let me ask you, this was a case that you were actively working and that you were actively working towards trial. Is that fair? Had you been deposed in this case by his legal counsel?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I can't remember. Because that COVID time was really weird.
Right.
We would get a lot of subpoenas, and then you wouldn't have any subpoenas for months on end.
Right.
So it was like this weird...
Yeah, I totally get you.
I just had a case resolved from 2019 because of COVID.
Got you.
So,
okay. So, but you were in a trial posture with this case, and you were planning on taking it to trial. Is that fair?
I was made to believe that, yes.
Okay, and then did you find out that just today that something else had happened? It had been resolved in a different way?
Yes. You showed me the fact that it had been non-prossed by the state with basically no excuse as to why it hadn't been prosecuted.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Hellman, I can't... let me get this thing. I don't know how to... I can't upgrade, but I can't really... let me get this on. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have for Deputy Stulkin. So, Mr. Hellman, I'd like to give you some time to make a statement, if you would like to make a statement for the record, if you'd like. If not...
At this time, the union or myself, we wouldn't be making any statement.
Okay. So, I don't have any further questions for Deputy Stulkin. So, Deputy Stulkin, this is still an open investigation, and unfortunately for you, it's going to remain open for a little bit longer because I'm going to take your statement, put it into a case, give that to Lieutenant Walker, then take Lieutenant Walker's statement, provide it to you, Mr. Hellman. You, Mr. Hellman, get to review that again, make any comment that you'd want to after that, and then the case will be closed. It's kind of unusual, right?
Okay.
But because of that, you're not going to be able to talk about this case with anybody but Mr. Hellman until I get it closed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with that, Mr. Hellman, I'm going to turn off the recorder. It is 11:38, so I'm going to stop